Anne and Trump were having a blast. They were totally in their own little world. The laughter from the penthouse balcony spilled out into the twilight sky like champagne bubbles. The city beneath them glittered with ambition, cars humming, lights blinking, people rushing, but up there, in that moment, nothing else mattered. Trump's hand rested lightly on Anne's waist, and she leaned into him, her eyes closed, her lips parting in a half smile. They were everything the tabloids loved: beauty, power, and a story that sounded like a modern fairy tale. Anne, the art teacher from Oregon who had met a billionaire at a charity auction, and Trump, the cold-hearted mogul who had sworn never to love again. Yet, here they were, dancing barefoot on marble floors, the moon reflected in their wine glasses. "Promise me," Anne whispered that night, her voice trembling with a strange tenderness. "Promise me that no matter what happens, you won't shut me out." Trump looked down at her, his jaw tightening for a moment. "You have no idea how many promises I've broken, Anne." "Then start with this one," she said softly. He smiled, a real one, something rare for him. "All right, I promise." It was the first promise he ever meant. Their wedding had been the event of the decade. Helicopters hovered above the vineyard, reporters camped outside the gates, and the world watched as the billionaire who built empires kissed the woman who taught children how to paint sunsets. But the truth, the fragile truth, was that they were alone in a crowd of flashing cameras. Behind the veil of luxury, Anne felt it, a silence growing between them. Trump was married to his business as much as to her. Phone calls during dinner, board meetings in bed, emails at dawn. His empire was hungry, and it devoured everything it touched, including time. She understood at first. He carried the weight of thousands of jobs, millions of dollars, and expectations that never slept. She wanted to be patient. She wanted to believe love could survive the noise of success. But love, as she was learning, could bleed quietly. Some nights, she'd sit by the window, her paintbrush hovering above a half-finished canvas, colors blurring as tears dripped down. Trump would come home past midnight, his tie undone, exhaustion written across his face. He'd kiss her forehead absently and whisper, "Tomorrow, I'll make it up to you." Tomorrow never came. Trump had not always been this way. Once, long ago, he was the boy who grew up in silence, learning early that emotions were weaknesses to be weaponized. His father, a titan of industry, had taught him that affection was a currency easily devalued. He had loved once before Anne, a love that had ended with betrayal and loss, shattering whatever tenderness he had left. So when Anne entered his life, with her innocence, her warmth, her belief in colors and miracles, he felt something dangerous stir again. And he hated it. He loved her, but he feared her too. She had the power to unmake him, to expose the soft places he'd buried under decades of control. So he began to build walls again, not because he wanted to hurt her, but because he didn't know how to be seen. Anne noticed. "Why are you shutting me out?" she asked one evening, her voice breaking. "I'm not," he said, staring into the fire instead of her eyes. "I'm protecting you." "From what?" "From me." It was an answer that only deepened the ache between them. It happened on a cold December night. The stock market crashed unexpectedly, and Trump's empire began to tremble. The media feasted on it, headlines screaming, "The billionaire falls." For weeks, he was consumed by crisis meetings, sleepless nights, and desperate attempts to save what he had built. Anne stood by him, quietly, even when he barely looked her way. She brought him coffee, left notes on his desk, whispered prayers when he was too proud to ask for help. But every gesture felt smaller against the magnitude of his chaos. Then came the rumor. A photo leaked of Trump and his ex-fiancée at a business dinner. It wasn't scandalous, but it was enough for the tabloids to twist the knife. When Anne confronted him, her voice shook not from jealousy but from fatigue. "Tell me the truth," she said. He exhaled sharply. "It's business, Anne. You think I have time for anything else?" "I think," she said, her tears falling freely now, "that you don't have time for us." He turned away. "I told you what this life is, and I told you I'd rather have love than luxury." For the first time, his voice cracked. "You don't understand. Without this, without the fight, the control, the empire, I'm nothing." She took a step forward. "Then what am I to you?" He didn't answer. That silence was the beginning of the end. Weeks passed. Trump buried himself in work, while Anne vanished from the spotlight. She moved into a small seaside cottage 3 hours away, where the only sound was the ocean and the seagulls crying above it. There, she painted again, colors she hadn't touched in months. Her brush moved with sorrow and grace, every stroke a reflection of the love that had both saved and scarred her. She didn't tell him she was leaving for good. She simply left a letter. "Greater than Trump. You once said you were nothing without your empire. But I saw the man behind the empire, the boy who still believes he's unworthy of love. You are more than what you build, you are what you feel, and I loved you for that. But love cannot breathe in a cage. If you ever remember me, remember that I stayed until my silence became louder than my voice. Anne. He found the letter on her nightstand at dawn. It was the first time in years that he cried. Trump's fall was public, but his pain was private. The empire he had built was salvaged, but it no longer felt like victory. The parties, the deals, the power, all hollow. Every room echoed with her absence. Her laughter had been the last real sound in his life. He tried to call her once, but the number had changed. He sent her roses, but they were returned unopened. And so he began his quiet penance. He stopped chasing new ventures and instead funded art schools under her name. He walked through galleries alone, staring at canvases that reminded him of her touch. He read her old letters, tracing the ink as though it could bring her back. People said the billionaire had gone soft. They didn't know the truth. He had simply remembered how to feel. Years passed. Then one day, his assistant brought him a small envelope marked from the coast. Inside was a painting, hers. A woman standing at the edge of the sea, the wind in her hair, her arms open as though embracing the storm. On the back, in Anne's handwriting, greater than a reflection of love, sacrifice, pain, and the power of embrace. He knew it was her farewell. 3 years later, fate decided to be kind, if only for a moment. Trump attended a charity auction for an art foundation in New York. He sat quietly, bidding on nothing, when suddenly the final painting of the night appeared on stage. It was titled, The Marriage Trial. The room fell silent. The painting depicted two figures, a woman holding a crumbling heart in her hands, and a man behind her, shadowed, reaching but never touching. The colors were haunting, deep blues and golds fading into gray. The artist's name, Anne Grace. Trump felt the air leave his lungs. When the auction ended, he searched the crowd, and there she was. Older, softer, but still luminous. Their eyes met across the room, and time dissolved. She approached him, slowly, her smile trembling. "You look the same," she said. "You look free," he replied. They stood there, surrounded by applause and murmurs, yet utterly alone, like they had been years ago, only now the silence between them had meaning. "I saw your letter," he whispered. "Every word of it became my truth. I saw your foundations," she said. "You kept your promise after all." For a moment, neither spoke. The city buzzed around them, but they were caught in something softer, deeper, a fragile peace that didn't need forgiveness to exist. Then she touched his hand. Just once. It wasn't an invitation or a goodbye. It was an embrace in the form of a gesture, a silent acknowledgement of everything they had been, everything they had lost, and everything that still lived quietly between them. That night, Trump walked alone through the streets of Manhattan. He passed the old buildings he once owned, the ones that had defined him. None of them mattered anymore. What mattered was that he had seen her again, that she had survived him, forgiven him, and still painted the truth of their love onto the world. He reached the riverfront and looked out at the water. The city lights shimmered like scattered stars. He closed his eyes and remembered the sound of her laughter, the warmth of her embrace, the way she had once whispered that love was not possession but presence. And for the first time, he understood. Love was never about keeping someone. It was about holding them long enough to let them go. Years later, Anne's art became legendary. Her final collection, Reflections, featured 12 paintings, each dedicated to the stages of her marriage, love, loss, silence, and grace. The last piece was titled, The Embrace. It showed two silhouettes standing at opposite ends of a canvas, their shadows merging in the middle, forming a heart. At the exhibition, an old man in a black suit stood quietly before the painting. No one recognized him as Trump, the billionaire who once ruled the world. He smiled faintly, eyes wet. "Beautiful," someone beside him whispered. "Yes," he said softly. "It's everything we were." That night, he left the gallery and disappeared into the rain. Anne passed away 2 years later, peacefully, surrounded by her paintings and sea air. In her will, she left one final instruction, that her ashes be scattered over the ocean at sunset. Trump attended quietly, standing at a distance. When the wind carried her ashes into the waves, he whispered her name and felt the world go still. He had lost her long before death took her, but now, finally, he let her go completely. And in that letting go, he found peace. In the end, their love was not a failure. It was a trial, a test of hearts caught between two worlds, one of power, one of tenderness. Anne had given him color, he had given her chaos. Together, they painted something tragic and beautiful, something only love could survive. Trump never remarried. Instead, he lived quietly by the coast, funding art schools for children who couldn't afford dreams. Sometimes, in the hush of evening, he'd look out at the sea and imagine her there, smiling, painting, forgiving. And in that bittersweet silence, he would whisper the words he never got to say aloud. Greater than, you were my greatest trial, and my greatest love. The wind would carry his voice across the waves, where it would fade into the horizon. A reflection of love, sacrifice, pain, and the enduring power of embrace.